Daniel, we appreciate your years of service, but it's time for fresh perspectives. Your role is terminated effective immediately. The words hung in the air between us like stale cologne. Across the sleek conference table, Jason Atkins sat with perfect posture, his expression professionally neutral. At 42, he was 17 years my junior, with credentials from prestigious consulting firms and an MBA from an Ivy League university that he managed to mention in every company meeting. I didn't blink. Instead, I stood, extended my hand, and said, "Wishing you and the company continued success." My voice remained steady, betraying none of the anger churning inside me. Jason exhaled, a subtle release of tension that told me he'd expected tears, pleading, or at least some resistance. He shook my hand briefly, his grip loose and non-committal. "Human resources will assist with your transition. We're offering 6-month severance, which is generous considering company policy." His tone suggested I should be grateful for this pittance after 25 years of service. "My name is Daniel Morris. I'm 59 years old, and until 10 minutes ago, I was the Vice President of Partnerships at Silverstone Naturals. I had joined when we were just a modest wellness brand operating out of a converted warehouse in Dallas, Texas. In those early days, we had 3 product lines and distribution in exactly 47 stores. Now, our organic supplements and wellness products appeared on shelves in over 5,000 retail locations nationwide. I'd negotiated every major partnership that built this company. When larger competitors tried to squeeze us out of prime shelf space, I was the one who found creative solutions. When supply chain issues threatened our growth during the pandemic, I secured alternative materials without compromising quality. As I packed my office, the corner space I'd earned through years of dedicated service, I gazed at the awards on my wall. Excellence in Business Partnership, Vendor of the Year, Outstanding Contribution to Industry Standards. Each accolade represented countless hours of work, relationship building, and strategic thinking. My assistant, Catherine, appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Everyone's talking about it. Nobody understands why." I smiled gently. "It's business, Catherine. Nothing personal." But we both knew that wasn't true. Jason had been systematically removing the old guard since his arrival 6 months ago. My termination was simply the latest in his campaign for fresh perspectives, his favorite euphemism for ageism. As I carried my box of belongings toward the elevator, I passed the gleaming sign that read, "Silverstone Naturals, Wellness Without Compromise." I couldn't help but think that some compromises were evidently acceptable after all. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. The first warning sign appeared when Jason arrived at Silverstone Naturals last October. The board had hired him with great fanfare, touting him as a transformational leader who would take our company to the next level in the competitive wellness market. At his welcome reception, I extended my hand and introduced myself. "Daniel Morris, Vice President of Partnerships. I've been with Silverstone for 25 years. Looking forward to working together." He smiled, but his eyes assessed me coolly. "Wonderful to meet you, Daniel. 25 years. That's impressive loyalty. I'm excited to bring some fresh energy to our strategies." Fresh energy. It seemed innocent enough then. But within weeks, Jason hired 3 consultants from his previous firm. They conducted what he called a talent landscape assessment, essentially evaluating every executive and director-level employee. I noticed they spent considerably more time with the younger team members. During my evaluation interview, the lead consultant asked, "How do you stay current with digital marketing trends?" And, "Are you comfortable with rapid technological changes?" The questions felt pointed, designed to expose perceived generational weaknesses. At dinner that evening, I mentioned my concerns to my wife, Roberta. "I think they're building a case against the older executives," I said, pushing my salad around the plate. Roberta squeezed my hand. "You've survived 4 CEOs and 2 acquisitions. You'll outlast Jason, too." I wasn't so sure. The following week, Thomas Grayson, our 62-year-old chief operations officer, was encouraged to retire. A 36-year-old from Jason's former consulting firm replaced him. 2 weeks later, our 57-year-old marketing director was restructured out of her position. Despite these warning signs, I had one source of comfort. 5 years earlier, I had made a strategic personal investment that was now proving more valuable than ever. Through careful financial planning and some inheritance money from my mother, I had acquired a significant silent stake in CoreLogix Distributors, the company that handled 70% of Silverstone's national fulfillment contracts. It had been a calculated risk. I saw how dependent Silverstone had become on CoreLogix's specialized services and nationwide infrastructure. Our wellness products required temperature-controlled environments, specialized handling, and precise delivery schedules. Finding an alternative would be nearly impossible without significant disruption. No one at Silverstone knew about my investment. I had established a holding LLC called Meadowlark Ventures to manage my business interests outside the company. It was perfectly legal and ethical. I had disclosed having outside investments without specifying what they were, as per company policy. I never imagined this silent investment would become my insurance policy. The morning after my termination from Silverstone, I woke at 6 as usual. For the first time in 25 years, I had nowhere to go. The house felt eerily quiet without the usual rush to prepare for work. I made coffee and sat on my back porch, watching the sunrise and contemplating my uncertain future. At 59, I was technically too young to retire, but old enough to face significant challenges in the job market. I knew the statistics. The average job search for executives over 50 lasted nearly a year, twice as long as for younger counterparts, and most ended up accepting positions with lower compensation and status than their previous roles. Roberta joined me on the porch, coffee in hand. "What's next?" she asked, her voice gentle. I sighed. "I don't know yet, but I'm not done." My phone buzzed with a text message from Harold Peters, CoreLogix's CEO. "Heard what happened. Dinner tonight, 7 p.m. at Giovanni's." Harold and I had a unique relationship. While he knew me as a Silverstone executive, he was also aware that I was a significant investor in his company through Meadowlark Ventures. We maintained strict boundaries between these two roles, never discussing proprietary information that would create conflicts of interest. That evening at Giovanni's, a quiet Italian restaurant in downtown Dallas, Harold greeted me with a sympathetic embrace. 25 years, and that's how they thank you? Shameful. As we settled into our booth, Harold got straight to the point. "Jason Atkins called me this morning, wants to review our partnership agreement and explore more favorable terms. Translation, he wants to cut costs at our expense." I nodded, unsurprised. That's his style. Quick wins to impress the board without considering long-term consequences. Harold sipped his wine. "Our contract with Silverstone comes up for renewal in 4 months. Normally, I'd start preliminary discussions now to ensure continuity." "And what are you thinking?" I asked, careful to maintain the boundary between my roles as investor and former Silverstone executive. "As CEO, I need to protect CoreLogix's interests. Silverstone wants premium service at budget prices. That's not sustainable for us." He paused. "As a major investor, I wanted you to know we're considering non-renewal if Jason insists on renegotiating terms downward." The implications were clear. Without CoreLogix, Silverstone would face significant disruption. Finding a replacement distributor with comparable nationwide infrastructure would take months, if not longer. Retailers wouldn't wait. They'd reduce Silverstone's shelf space and give it to competitors who could reliably deliver. I took a thoughtful sip of my wine. Harold, I trust you to make the right decision for CoreLogix, but I'd like to propose something else for your consideration. Harold raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. What if we created something new? A wellness brand built from the ground up with modern supply chain efficiency. No legacy systems. No outdated thinking. As I outlined my vision, I saw Harold's expression shift from sympathy to interest. Interesting, he said when I finished. Very interesting indeed. 2 weeks after my termination, I received a call from Catherine, my former assistant. Daniel, have you heard what's happening here? She whispered, clearly calling from somewhere private within the Silverstone offices. What's going on? I asked, settling into my home office chair. It's chaotic. Jason's implementing all these changes simultaneously. New packaging, reformulated products, different marketing approaches. And now there's talk about distribution problems. I maintained a neutral tone. Distribution problems? Yes. Apparently, CoreLogix isn't being cooperative about Jason's cost-cutting demands. They're saying the current contract must be honored until expiration, and they're not accepting the new terms Jason proposed. This wasn't news to me. Harold had kept me informed about Jason's increasingly aggressive approach to renegotiating terms, including his threat to explore alternative distribution options if CoreLogix wouldn't accommodate his demands. That sounds challenging, I replied diplomatically. The board called an emergency meeting yesterday. Jason tried to keep it quiet, but I heard his secretary scheduling it. Something about supply chain contingencies. After thanking Catherine for the update, I spent the afternoon reaching out to my industry contacts. The wellness product landscape had changed dramatically in recent years, with consumers increasingly demanding transparency, sustainability, and authentic stories behind their purchases. This created a perfect opening for a new entrant with the right approach and without the baggage of an established brand trying to reinvent itself. Later that week, I met with Andrew Lambert, a brilliant product developer who had been sidelined at Silverstone during Jason's reorganization. Like me, he had been labeled as insufficiently forward-thinking, despite his track record of successful innovations. How are you holding up, Andrew? I asked as we settled at a quiet corner table in a local coffee shop. He shrugged. They moved me to special projects, which means I have no real responsibilities anymore. I'm essentially being paid to do nothing until they find a reason to let me go. What would you say to starting fresh somewhere else? I asked carefully. Andrew's eyes lit up. Depends on where and with whom. I slid a folder across the table. Inside was a preliminary business plan for Evergreen Wellness, a new company focused on personalized wellness products with sustainable sourcing and transparent manufacturing processes. I'm assembling a team, I explained. People who understand this industry but aren't afraid to reinvent how things are done. I need a product development leader. Andrew studied the materials carefully. This is impressive, Daniel, but starting from scratch, the investment required would be substantial. I have investors lined up, I said, not mentioning that the primary investor was myself through Meadowlark Ventures, and I've secured preliminary distribution capabilities. Again, I kept CoreLogix's involvement vague. By the time we finished our coffee, Andrew had agreed to join Evergreen Wellness as soon as he could gracefully exit Silverstone. Over the next 2 weeks, I recruited 4 more key team members, all experienced professionals who had either been pushed out by Jason or were growing increasingly dissatisfied under his leadership. Each brought valuable expertise and industry connections. Meanwhile, Silverstone's distribution challenges were intensifying. Through my industry network, I learned that major retailers were receiving notice that Silverstone deliveries might face disruptions in the coming months. This was standard practice when a distribution contract was at risk. CoreLogic was legally obligated to inform retail partners of potential supply chain changes. The notifications sent ripples of concern through the retail community. Buyers began reaching out to Silverstone for reassurance, only to receive vague responses that further eroded confidence. Precisely as I had anticipated, Jason's cost-cutting strategy was backfiring spectacularly. By trying to pressure CoreLogic into accepting less favorable terms, he had destabilized Silverstone's most critical business relationship. 1 month after my departure from Silverstone, I received an unexpected visitor. Monica Reynolds, chairwoman of Silverstone's board of directors, called asking to meet privately. We had always maintained a cordial professional relationship, though she had ultimately supported Jason's decision to restructure the executive team. We met at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of Dallas. Monica looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes and a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for meeting me, Daniel," she said after we ordered. "I imagine you're not feeling particularly charitable towards Silverstone right now." "I spent 25 years building that company," I replied evenly. "My feelings are complex." She nodded. "That's exactly why I'm here. We have a situation, and I think you might be the only person who can help us understand it." "What situation is that?" I asked, though I had a good idea. Monica leaned forward. "Our distribution network is falling apart. CoreLogic has formally notified us that they won't be renewing their contract when it expires in 3 months. They've also rejected all proposed modifications to the existing agreement." I kept my expression neutral. "That sounds challenging." "It's more than challenging. It's potentially catastrophic. We've approached 6 other distribution companies. None can match CoreLogic's capabilities, especially their temperature-controlled facilities for our plant-based products. What does Jason say about all this?" I asked, genuinely curious about how my replacement was handling the crisis. Monica's expression darkened. "He insists we can build our own distribution network, but the board has seen the numbers. It would take 2 years and millions in capital expenditure to create something comparable. We don't have that kind of time or money." "So, why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I knew exactly why. "You built our partnership with CoreLogic from the ground up. They trusted you. Harold Peters won't even take Jason's calls anymore, but I'm betting he'd talk to you." Monica looked at me hopefully. "Would you consider acting as a consultant to help salvage this relationship?" The irony was almost too perfect. Jason had pushed me out for fresh perspectives, and now the board wanted my help to fix the mess he had created. "I'm flattered that you thought of me," I said carefully, "but I've actually been quite busy with a new venture." "A new venture?" Monica looked surprised. "Yes, I'm launching a wellness brand called Evergreen Wellness. We're focusing on personalized nutrition supplements with sustainable sourcing." I smiled. "In fact, we've already secured nationwide distribution." "With CoreLogic?" Monica asked, connecting the dots immediately. I nodded. "Among others." The color drained from Monica's face as she realized the implications. "Daniel, is there something I should know about your relationship with CoreLogic?" "I've always had excellent professional relationships with our business partners," I replied non-committally. Before Monica could press further, my phone buzzed with a message from Harold. "Riverstream Retail interested in Evergreen products. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. available?" Riverstream was one of Silverstone's largest retail customers, representing nearly 15% of their total sales. The fact that they were already exploring alternatives was telling. "I should get going," I said, signaling for the check. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." As we parted ways, Monica looked defeated. Daniel, if you reconsider helping us with CoreLogix, the board would be extremely grateful. I smiled politely. I'll keep that in mind, but as I said, I'm quite focused on my new venture now. Sometimes fresh perspectives are exactly what the market needs. The hint of my own words being turned back against Silverstone wasn't lost on Monica. Her expression told me she finally understood that her company's distribution crisis was no accident. The following week brought news that sent shockwaves through the wellness industry. Jason Atkins, in a desperate attempt to solve Silverstone's distribution crisis, had announced an ambitious plan to build their own distribution network. The announcement included a substantial capital raise, diluting existing shareholders' value, and projected an 18-month timeline for completion. Silverstone's stock dropped 17% in a single day. I watched the developments with detached interest while focusing on building Evergreen Wellness. We had secured office space in a modern building in downtown Dallas, assembled a core team of 15 experienced professionals, many former Silverstone employees, and finalized our initial product line of personalized nutritional supplements. Our partnership with CoreLogix gave us a significant advantage. With Harold's support, we had designed our supply chain to maximize efficiency from the beginning rather than trying to retrofit outdated systems as Silverstone had done for years. Just as we were finalizing our launch plans, I received another unexpected call. This time from Benjamin Wright, Silverstone's founder who had retired 5 years earlier. Though no longer involved in day-to-day operations, he still held a significant ownership stake and served as chairman emeritus. "Daniel," he said when I answered, "I need to see you. It's important." We met at his sprawling ranch outside Dallas, where he had retreated to enjoy his retirement. At 72, Benjamin still had the sharp mind and direct manner that had made him a successful entrepreneur. "What the hell is happening to my company?" he demanded after we settled in his study. "The stock is tanking, retailers are nervous, and now I hear CoreLogix is cutting ties. You built that relationship. What's going on?" I explained how Jason had systematically pushed out experienced executives, including myself, in pursuit of his vision for a younger, more innovative leadership team. "Damn foolishness," Benjamin muttered. "Experience matters in this business. Always has." Then came the question I had been anticipating. "And what's this I hear about you starting a competing company, with CoreLogix's backing no less?" I met his gaze evenly. "I invested in CoreLogix years ago, Benjamin. It was a personal financial decision, fully disclosed according to Silverstone's policies on outside investments. As for Evergreen Wellness, yes, I'm launching a new brand. After being pushed out of Silverstone, I wasn't ready to retire." Benjamin studied me thoughtfully. "You know, I always told the board they underestimated you. You were never just the partnerships person. You understood the whole business, end to end." He leaned forward. "Tell me honestly, Daniel. Did you orchestrate this distribution crisis?" "I made investments and career choices that protected my interests," I replied carefully. "Just as you taught me to do." A slow smile spread across Benjamin's face. "Well played." He sat back in his chair. "So what happens now?" "Silverstone's on the ropes and you're positioned to deliver the knockout punch." "That depends," I said. "Evergreen is my priority now, but I have no desire to see Silverstone destroyed. Too many good people still work there." Benjamin nodded thoughtfully. "The board's called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They're discussing Jason's future." He fixed me with an intense gaze. "If changes were made at the top, significant changes, would there be any possibility of salvaging the CoreLogix relationship?" I considered this carefully. I can't speak for CoreLogix. They're making business decisions based on their own interests, but new leadership might create an opportunity for a fresh conversation. Benjamin smiled at my deliberate use of the term fresh conversation. I still have some influence with the board. Perhaps it's time I made a few calls. As I drove home, I realized that the situation had evolved beyond my original plan. I was no longer in control of my own personal expectations. What had begun as a simple story of comeuppance was developing into something more complex, a potential industry realignment where I held significant leverage. The headline in the Dallas Business Journal said it all. Silverstone Naturals CEO ousted after distribution crisis. Founder returns as interim leader. Just 3 months after pushing me out, Jason Atkins had been terminated by the same board that had once championed his fresh perspectives. Benjamin Wright had emerged from retirement to stabilize the company he founded, immediately announcing a return to core values and a renewed focus on key business relationships. I received the news via multiple text messages from former colleagues, each expressing various degrees of satisfaction at this turn of events. Catherine, my former assistant, was particularly jubilant. "Justice, when are you coming back?" But I had no intention of returning to Silverstone. Evergreen Wellness was 1 week away from our official launch, and we had already secured commitments from retailers representing over 60% of our projected first-year sales targets. My phone rang. Benjamin Wright calling. "I assume you've heard the news," he said without preamble. "I have. Congratulations on your return." "It's temporary," he said. "Just until we right the ship, which brings me to the reason for my call. I need to meet with Harold Peters. Today, if possible." "I can't speak for Harold," I replied. "But you can facilitate an introduction," Benjamin countered. "Daniel, I'm not asking you to abandon your new venture, but there's no reason our companies can't coexist in the marketplace. Competition is healthy. Destruction isn't." He was right, of course. My goal had never been to destroy Silverstone, only to demonstrate the consequences of undervaluing experience and loyalty. "I'll reach out to Harold," I conceded, "but the decision will be his." "That's all I'm asking," Benjamin said. "And Daniel?" "For what it's worth, the board now understands exactly what they lost when they let you go." It was a small victory, but a satisfying one nonetheless. 1 month later, I stood on a stage at the Natural Products Expo in Anaheim, California, introducing Evergreen Wellness to the industry. The response was overwhelming. Our booth had been consistently packed with interested retailers, media representatives, and potential partners. "Our approach is personalization without compromise," I explained to the audience of industry professionals. "We believe wellness isn't one size fits all, and neither should our products be." From my position on stage, I could see Silverstone's significantly smaller booth across the exhibition hall. Benjamin Wright was there, along with a notably more diverse executive team that included several reinstated veterans alongside some of Jason's more sensible hires. Following our launch, Silverstone and CoreLogix had indeed reached a new agreement. Not as favorable as their original contract, but enough to prevent complete disruption of Silverstone's business. Harold had made the decision independently, though I suspect my suggestion that industry diversity was healthy had influenced his thinking. After my presentation, Benjamin approached me with an extended hand. "Impressive launch," he said sincerely. "You've assembled a remarkable team." "Thank you," I replied, accepting his handshake. "How are things at Silverstone?" "Stabilizing. The board has approved a more realistic timeline for building our complementary distribution network while maintaining CoreLogix for critical products." He smiled ruefully. "We are calling it a hybrid approach now, rather than a crisis response." I couldn't help but smile. "Perspective matters." "Indeed it does," Benjamin agreed. We've learned that the hard way. He paused. Jason Atkins has taken a position with a small startup in Seattle. I hear they're very excited about his fresh perspectives. We both laughed at the irony. As Benjamin walked away, Andrew joined me at our booth. Was that awkward? He asked. Not at all, I replied. It feels like appropriate closure. In business, as in life, true victory isn't about destruction. It's about validation. My journey from company loyalist to successful competitor had come full circle, not in bitterness, but in vindication of my worth.